There is an interesting thing going on in what you could term the right wing of British and European politics at the moment. After decades of the opposition to leftist liberalism in the mainstream being so-called boomer truth, it seems that young people don't actually adhere to that way of thinking. Boomer truth, in essence, is something like neoliberal economics, racial and cultural blindness, and a sense that everybody should be judged by the content of their character. All sounds very right on and harmless, despite the lefties still calling them evil and racist even for that. However, many young people don't actually adhere to that because it doesn't speak to the world that they've grown up in. The boomer truth generation have grown up in a world where essentially they have cultural dominance. This is why figures like Nigel Farage, the king of the so-called boomer truth, don't really mind if British people get replaced in their own country as long as the people coming here hold to quote-unquote British values, whatever they are to him. However, many young people on the right increasingly don't really think that way. It's not because they're evil and racist as The Guardian and BBC would tell you, it's because they're growing up in a country where they're seeing they're losing their own culture, they're losing their own sense of identity. Further to that, they're noticing that they're increasingly disliked and demonized both by the people that are coming here and the mainstream culture. You see, these youngsters have grown up in a world where they don't have the luxury to judge someone by the content of their character. They've been told by the left and the mainstream that that's evil, that they have an innate privilege that they have to be aware of and accept movements like BLM when they state things like this: loving your culture and placing your race first doesn't make you racist. Of course, as a European, if you said that, it would probably be among the worst things you could possibly say in the mainstream and it would ruin your life. But when black people say it, you're supposed to celebrate it, and in fact, if you stand against it, the whole of the mainstream will come down upon you with a great vengeance. Henceforth, the boomer paradigm just doesn't make sense to young people. It doesn't answer the complexities that the modern West faces. And that's why you get clips like this. This is a grouping of young people at the Reform conference recently being asked what they feel is the most important thing that Reform is not doing.
In one sentence, what do you want Reform to do that they're not doing now or not pushing now?
Mass deportations. I don't know. Yeah, is my mic on for that one? Excellent. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, a robust policy of remigration, as well as an advancement beyond the language of British values and into the language of British identity.
Now, it's notable that these two young men take a line that is much firmer than the traditional Reform boomer mentality of integration. These guys want remigration because they don't believe that people can simply be integrated in the present situation in Britain anymore. But what's interesting next is that the fella on the end answers the questions but drags it back into what you might call the boomer paradigm.
I might get shot for this, but I've got to reiterate exactly what Connor just said. What I would like us to do is mass deportations of people that have entered our country illegally and have got absolutely no right to be here whatsoever.
Now, I may be wrong here, but I feel that the two younger fellas weren't talking simply about illegal immigrants. Yes, that's a big problem, but the numbers are quite minuscule compared to the amount of legal migration we've had that's completely swamped the country. Seems to me that many of these young people have looked across Europe and seen that many of the migrants that have come here aren't integrating at all, and they don't buy the line that all we need to do is just have more cultural influence and all these people will drop their religious, cultural and ethnic sensibilities and just become British. I personally think these young men were quite brave for stating that because they will now be demonised by the liberal mainstream. However, it seems to me we have three potential outcomes in the future. One, we all just magically integrate somehow and Labour's wonderful utopia somehow magically works. Secondly, we have some form of remigration, or there is the inevitable balkanisation of the future. Which one do you think is most likely? Do let me know down below and do consider subscribing to the channel.